I wanted to give you a brief little follow-up to the latest batch of Epstein files that dropped. Over 3 million files came out, and it's been quite a few days now of people coming through them and finding tons and tons of alarming things, new allegations, new names, a ton of new information. I highly recommend you check out CoffeeZilla's 2 latest videos covering this new Epstein file drop. I think he does a great job at cutting through the bullshit and delivering the clearest coverage and highlighting some of the most important takeaways from all of this new information. This is a huge deal, and don't let any of the NPCs on Twitter convince you otherwise or try and minimize the importance of this. And crazy enough, I know it's not just these faceless homunculi on Twitter that have this administration's cock buried deep into their throat that's trying to convince you to just let this all go. The administration itself is doing that as well, which is the main thing I want to talk about here. Since this release, the official narrative from the administration is they've finally complied with the law and released these files, and now we can all just move on. Which is crazy because there are still no arrests and seemingly no investigations either, despite all of this overwhelming evidence that now the public has access to and can see some really fucking terrible things in. Raping children, trafficking children, possible cannibalism, torture, murder, all of this now just openly in the public. Of course, with tons of redactions to protect the perpetrators, naturally, which, of course, violates the law that they're right now gloating about following, by the way. All of this is now out there in the public, and yet still, no investigations, and the administration is proudly just saying, time to move on. Before showing you some clips here, I want to do a little experiment here with you to try and activate a few neurons, God forbid. Let me dust off your brain here for a moment. Let's say that you have drank the Kool-Aid to such an extreme degree that you believe all of these Epstein files are a bunch of hooey when it comes to the Republicans that are named in there, like Howard Lutnick or Donald Trump. Let's say that you think that all of those are make-believe, there's nothing in there that holds any water, it's a fucking, wild goose chase, it's all fake. But you believe that all of the information in regards to Democrats in there, like Bill Clinton, is legitimate, and Bill Gates. All of that's real, but all the stuff on the Republicans is fake. Let's play ball with that. Let's say you're right. Why are the Republicans that are in charge right now in this administration not pursuing an investigation on the Democrats in these Epstein files? Let's go into a little bit of chess theory here. Everything about Donald Trump and the Epstein files is totally innocent. He's been absolved of all wrongdoing like he says he is and like a lot of other people are trying to regurgitate. Despite the numerous times his name appears, let's say he's not compromised by Israel like the FBI was investigating. Let's say all of this is wrong, but all the Democrats that are named in there are actually guilty. Those are the actual evil perpetrators and the real culprits. Why the fuck aren't we arresting the Democrats, or at the very least, investigating all of this information in the Epstein files? Ask yourself that question. Let's use someone easy, Bill Clinton. I think most sane people on the planet, after combing through the Epstein files and seeing all of these allegations and the pictures and everything with Bill Clinton, can agree there's enough here to at least start poking around and see what's going on with Bill Clinton's relationship to Epstein and everything that happened on the Epstein Island, right? Well, why the fuck is Trump defending him so adamantly right now? He just put out a statement like, man, I hate that people are shooting spitballs at Bill Clinton. I like that guy. I love that guy, actually. For a second there, I thought he was going to request a group hug in the shower with Bill Clinton at the very end of that fucking segment. Like, all of a sudden, he's Bill Clinton's best friend suckling on his titties. Like, what? Where's this coming from? Like, only a couple days ago, he was like, yeah, Bill Clinton's name's all over that. That backfired, didn't it? And now he's like, oh, man, Bill Clinton's, he's like the best of us. That guy's awesome. This is craziness, actual craziness. Now, I know that there's, like, some probes into some things in regards to the Epstein files and people like Bill Clinton, like, related to it. But nothing's going to come from it. Nothing has come from this shit ever. Across multiple administrations, nothing has come from it, so I have no expectation that there's going to be any justice, especially when the fucking President Trump is still talking about, like, let's move on and it's not important. Or perjury Patel, like, hey, we comply with the law, Epstein files are out there, we're done here, time to wash our hands of it. Or Todd Blanche going and saying, it's not a crime to party with Epstein. It's very hard to have any level of faith that there's going to be any repercussions to all of these evil monsters. Now, I know I've been sitting here shitting and spitting, got a little off track. To bring it back to the initial thought experiment I wanted to plant into your noodle. If you believe all Republicans in these Epstein files are innocent, but all Democrats are not, ask yourself, why are the Republicans that are in charge right now not actually investigating or holding any of these Democrats accountable and punishing them, pursuing charges, or anything of the sort? Why does it seem like the actual narrative is the Epstein files are out there, we're done here? Even though, by the way, the official stance only a few months ago is that the Epstein files aren't real, it's a Democrat hoax, they don't exist, that kind of thing. After, of course, Pam Bondi said they were on her desk. After, of course, they had actually given the Epstein files phase 1 to some fucking right-wing influencers who have been hush-hush crickets ever since. Anyway, if the Democrats in the Epstein files are guilty, why are they not being investigated? Let me offer you a little game theory here. It's because the Republicans in the Epstein files aren't actually innocent. No one in the Epstein files is innocent when it comes to a lot of the evidence we now have at our fingertips. There's a lot of real actionable stuff in there, at least I think so. Now, of course, a lot of it is unsubstantiated. I get that. Not everyone in there is probably guilty of shit. Like, I know Russell Wilson was in there about like a plane, like trying to buy a plane. I get that. But there's a lot of substantial evidence on a lot of very powerful people, like a Howard Lutnick. And so, if this administration did actually pursue charges against the Democrats that are named in the Epstein files, then that puts them at risk of being implicated as well if that person starts squealing, if they start letting the fat lady sing. That's why I believe they are not pursuing any kind of real investigation or anything at all for anyone associated with the Epstein files. That's why, apparently, all of these extremely powerful people that are named in there are completely fucking untouchable. They're basically ghosts at this point. If your name is in the Epstein files, you've basically activated God mode in America, where you cannot be touched or punished, it seems. And I think that's also why the previous administration wasn't touching anything in the Epstein files, because again, if they went after the Republicans that were named in the Epstein files, that opens them up to also being implicated there as well. Because clearly, this was more than just one party. Both Republicans and Democrats are named a lot in these Epstein files. So it'd be a fucking disaster for both parties, which is why it's been such like a fucking hot potato that hasn't been touched. That's what I believe. Now anyway, I think any sane person would agree that this is a huge fucking problem, that no one is getting arrested for this. But unfortunately, the powerful politicians that govern us are not sane. So they are to our face spitting on us, telling us to just move on and that it's not important. Here's those words from Donald Trump.
And you tell me something else. No, I think it's really time for the country to get onto something else, really. You know, now that nothing came out about me, other than it was a conspiracy against me, literally, by Epstein and other people. But I think it's time now for the country to maybe get onto something else.
What would you say to people who feel like they haven't gotten justice, Mr. President?
Something that people care about. Yeah.
Oh, move on to something that people care about. So you don't care about child sex trafficking, the raping of children, the potential cannibalism, the torture, the murder, all of that? That's not something you think American people should care about? That's not the important stuff? Well, what the fuck is? The Trump phone? Which is probably coming out any day now. Supposed to come out in like August of 2025, by the way. Still no expected delivery time on my Trump phone device. Crazy. They're saying maybe March now. Fingers crossed. Any day, no doubt. How can anyone sit there and not be revolted by that statement? Again, if these Epstein files absolved Trump, which I don't see how anyone could mental gymnastic that explanation into reality and truly believe it. But again, even if he is completely squeaky clean here in the Epstein case, everyone else isn't. There's plenty of people that aren't. Why does he want so badly to just move on from this? Why does he want to bury it? He should be like really gung-ho about getting all of them arrested. And in fact, actually, one of his big promises when he was campaigning is that's exactly what he's going to do. But promises made, promises broken. That's the new motto. That is exactly what's been going on. He campaigned about how important the Epstein files were to release and like actually get justice for the victims and punish these heinous, evil people. And then the second he gets into office, he's done everything in his power to not only deny the existence of the Epstein files, calling them a Democrat hoax, but also doing everything he can to prevent them from coming out. And it has just been a complete circus with these. And now that they're here, and people have all of this evidence with so many names and so many bad people on there with a lot of things that I do think would warrant an investigation, he is saying it's not important and that we need to move on. That is actual craziness.
Do you have regrets about how it's been handled?
Look, like any other
hot topic issue. The American public and the world had a great interest in this. And what we did under President Trump's leadership is produce the most transparent DOJ and FBI in history. 3 other administrations had the opportunity to do this, and we produced everything we legally and lawfully could. We worked with our partners in Congress, we followed the statutes and the court orders, and we produced, 3 million some pages. So I think we got to the result in the right way. Could we have gotten there faster? I'm not really sure because of numerous court cases, multiple protective orders, multiple court sealings. And so now we've produced everything we can while protecting victims' rights and following.
This fucking dweeb, this insufferable dork. So here's Perjury Patel taking a victory lap here about how they did everything right when it came to the Epstein files, which, by the way, under oath, Cash Patel said that there's no evidence that there were like any, clients, no list. He said plenty of things that have been completely disproven with these Epstein files being released, but he's not facing any perjury charges, and to my understanding, no one's even pursuing it. Super weird how Perjury Patel just gets away with it. But here, he's talking about how they did everything right in the right way, which is not true. They did everything they could to not release these files every step of the way. They're already 2 months late, basically, close to it. And also, the redactions were supposed to be reserved exclusively for the names of victims. They have not been used for just victims' names. That has been proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. That is a violation of the law that had been signed into place when it came to the handling of the Epstein files. And pretty much everything he says there is just a lie. That is what Perjury Patel does, just lie. But the sentiment he's trying to express is now that they have the 3 million some files out there, they've done what they were required to do, and now we need to move on. There is nothing in regards to an investigation or punishment to the people that are named in these files with tons of evidence and tons of really very, very disturbing things, pictures, videos, emails, all of this stuff, and all of the people in them don't seem to be looking at any possible punishment or anything at all. It doesn't seem like there's any level of justice coming to the victims here of the Jeffrey Epstein operation and all of the clients.
Is there any chance that any of these individuals who partied with Epstein and engaged in, relations with minors will be prosecuted? Any chance?
I'll never say no, and we will always investigate any evidence of misconduct. But as you know, it is not a crime to party with Mr. Epstein, and so as horrible as it's not a crime to email with Mr. Epstein. And some of these men may have done horrible things, and if we have evidence that allows us to prosecute them, you better believe we will. But it's also the kind of thing that the American people need to understand that. It isn't a crime to party with Mr. Epstein. It isn't a crime to have
Didn't look like that's all that was going on some of those photos. I mean, if the photos could speak, some of them look pretty bad.
That's right. And unfortunately, photos can't speak. And so we need witnesses and we need
evidence. Are there videotapes that you all have? Or?
To answer that question, yeah, there's videotapes that they all have. In fact, Pam Bondi said that there's thousands of videos with children in them. Pam Bondi seems totally fine just letting this whole Epstein thing just kind of fall to the back rooms, by the way. Anyway, though, here's Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche just outright saying with his whole chest, it's not a crime to party with Jeffrey Epstein. And he's being very open and honest here about how little he's actually caring about it. He's making it seem like, maybe there's a chance for an investigation, but he's being very blunt that it's probably not coming. There's probably not going to be an investigation. He's even saying, yeah, unfortunately, pictures can't speak. So all those horrible pictures and all of that evidence in there, probably not going to lead to an investigation. Everyone's going to get away with it. Oh, shucks. But it's not a crime to party with Jeffrey Epstein. The man behind the biggest child sex trafficking operation in this country's history. What a strong message to be sending, Todd. It's all just so blatantly in your face. They treat you like you are a mindless sheep. And plenty of people are proving them correct here with the shit that they're swallowing here with the smile on their face. Wake the fuck up, samurai. The president has just said that we need to move on from the Epstein files into something that people care about. Let that marinate for a second. Really think about that. Why is he trying to make it seem like the raping of children, the sex trafficking of children, the cannibalism, the torture, the murder is not something you should care about? And this is all perpetrated by potentially the most powerful people in this country. Why is the president and his administration trying so hard to bury this and get people to move on without even trying to investigate or hold anyone accountable that's named in these files? It's just crazy. Anyway, I just had to yap about this a bit after seeing the response here from government officials about it's not important, just move on. I actually couldn't believe my fucking ears. Anyway, that's really about it. See ya.